Hello, so today we're going to have a look at a Czech SA26 submachine gun. Now, I'm aware this is called the ZZ25 or the VZ25 a lot, or VZ25. Now, from what I can establish from looking it up, it's essentially based on which stock configuration it is and which calibre it is, depends on which version it is. But the SA26 or the VZ26 is the one that's in Tokarev with the folding stock, which is a really common one. So, this was one of the first telescoping bolt submachine guns. So what a telescoping bolt is in really boring sort of layman's terms, but should hopefully make it easy to understand, is that if you imagine like one of those toy lightsabers that expands when they go out, or a telescopic baton, anything like that, basically the bits fit into each other, rather than it being like one long tube. It's several smaller tubes that, you know, fit into each other, telescope out, like an old telescope that, you know, you go to take out. But what that means is that you can actually have a bolt that has the full length of the bolt and all the mass required for a bolt, but it's significantly shorter, so lots of bits can be moved back. So for example, the magazine here is inside the pistol grip rather than being forwards, and I'll give you a good demonstration why that massively cuts down the size of it. Now, probably the most famous gun that would have a telescoping bolt that came out a bit after this and was inspired by the design of this was the Israeli Uzi. I think it was IMI that did the Uzi. But the Czechs did it first with a SMG. Now, there might have been SMGs before this one that used it, I don't know, but the Czech one's like the most famous mass-produced one that first did it. Now, obviously, this was common in pistols before it was with SMGs, but up to this point, if you think of World War II, most SMGs had the magazine in front of the trigger, you know, and everything else. So, to just demonstrate the difference in size, here is, I know it's got the stock folded, just ignore the stock for now. Here's the SA26, as you can see, fits in your hand like that. The mass is quite controllable. And here's the Papashar or PPSH. And as you can see, this is massively bigger because the magazine is in front of the trigger assembly. And the bolt on here would come all the way back to about there. I can actually show you the mechanism. Yeah, the spring for the bolt goes all the way literally to the rear of the stock. See all the dirty Cosmoline on there as well. Right. So, yeah, the bolt on here comes all the way back to there, as you can see. And on something like the SA26, the bolt goes all the way to the back of the magazine, yes, but that's a much shorter travel distance. So what that means is obviously you can have the same barrel length, a bit like the bullpup idea of, you know, rifles. You have the same barrel length, but you can cut down on the exact, you know, like excessive length of it. And that also means the centre of mass is more where your hand is, so it's much more comfortable to hold, and in theory shoot one-handed, although I don't think that would be very accurate at all. So what's interesting about this design is it had quite a few innovative features. Now, some of these wouldn't catch on, and probably for obvious reasons, but they're kind of interesting. So it has the cool folding stock foregrip design that I really like. So obviously when the stock's folded, it acts as the foregrip. Then when you unfold the stock, so it's got a little catch there, so you push a button, and then there's a catch just here, and that releases it. It swings backwards, like so, and then locks into place like that. So now you have the actual stock extended, so obviously you get a bit more control over it. And then obviously use this now as the handguard rather than the foregrip. So, yeah, you've actually got an SMG here. Again, you can't really cheek weld very well with one of these folding stocks. They're not the most comfortable thing in the world, but the point is that you can have something that works in both things, you know, either as a foregrip in a pistol style format, or as an actual extended stock for a more controllable format. Now, another interesting feature on here is the push through safety. So that's safe, push it through. That's fire. Now, the more interesting thing, and I can't show you the deactivated one, is that it was a two-stage trigger apparently, and again this is a feature some people like in guns, some people don't. You gave it a light squeeze, it would put off a single round semi. If you gave it a full squeeze, it would go full auto. So you could either do sort of a, for, you know, very for single shot, or you could just hold down trigger to hose something down. So that's quite an interesting feature as well. I like the rear sight. It's not a very good rear sight, but I like the kind of idea of it. HK would use this on their sort of drum sights later on to a better effect. But you've got one of these rotating back sights where the elevation is sort of a 4-position one. So if that makes sense, you twist that for sort of, say, 25 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards, whatever it is. I can't remember without looking, but the point is that, you know, you've got one of these little tiny rear sights that you twist into the position you want, and the same sight does everything without, you know, elevating or putting anything down, so it's only one really moving part now. So yeah, the other weird feature on this, which I don't think I've seen on many other guns ever, but it's a weird thing, there is a clip, and I mean clip, not a magazine, holder there. So let's just eject the mag and I'll show you what I mean. So I don't have the clip for this, unfortunately, but you'd have all your Tokarev rounds lined up there. I'm not sure which way around it went, probably this way. You'd have the clip essentially attached to all the rounds, and then you'd push your magazine like this up into the clip, and it would load the, some of the magazine for you. So yeah, looking at the size of that, I'd guess you could it's probably like 15 round or 10 round clips or something, you know, so you do 2 lots of it to fully load a mag. And the idea was that was easier than thumbing it in by hand, that you could just load the clip there, do that twice, you know, and you'd fully load a mag. Again, it's just kind of a reloading tool built into the side of the gun. It's one of those features I can understand why it didn't catch on, but it's just kind of interesting. Now, sadly, because this is deactivated to the sort of current EU standards, I can't open any of it up. It's all kind of, you know, like lock shut. Some of the bits to press and kind of turn, but I think there's a weld in there. I'm pretty sure there's a weld in there. I've never got that bit off, but let's actually... Something seems to be moving there. Let me have a play about with a screwdriver. I'm not going to obviously break any welds they've done, but if there's something that's actually, you know, removable just because it's a bit stiff from age, we'll see if I can push into that rear bit of the bolt and actually open it up. Now, unfortunately, I realised very quickly after attempting it that if you look there, you can see where they've done a little weld kind of thing to stop you taking that off. But in theory, what would have been there would have been you know, an unscrewable sort of back cover. But I've noticed with a lot of the EU spec guns, what they do now is once they've deactivated them and put like a fake spring assembly in so they feel authentic, but you know, a lot of the actual original mechanism's been removed, they tend to put a weld in so you can't open them up. Not on all of them, but on a lot of them they do. I think it depends on if it's an open bolt or not, closed bolt, that sort of thing, but this would be open bolt, so that's what they did it for. So yeah, as much as this might look a bit primitive and everything, bear in mind this is the submachine gun, like machine pistol, whatever you want to call it, that the Czechs had just before the Scorpion. And think how small the Scorpion is compared to this, but the Scorpion uses a lot of the same technology. But yeah, for something that was literally straight after World War II, this is massively more advanced than, say, a Thompson, a grease gun, a Sten, an MP40, whatever you like. Just because of the fact it is literally that compact for a World War II, you know, SMG. It is literally just, like I said, you can see where the Uzi design comes from this. You know, whereas the Uzi has sort of a pull-out, I think, telescopic style stock on it. And it's, you know, a bit chunkier there. If you cut this down shorter, you could probably see a sort of Uzi profile on it. You know, body kit on that, you could probably pretend it was an Uzi. But yeah, that's sort of thing. So the grips on it aren't very nice. They're nice to look at, but they're that kind of fake wood or sort of Bakelite. I actually like Bakelite, but you know, it's like where they do some weird lamination to wood using some sort of very early plastic. So it feels very brittle and kind of like, you know, it's going to scratch off and deform at any notice. But I think during the time it meant it was more weather resistant than just normal wood. But yeah, there you go. So that's oh, and I can actually show you, if I pull this back, you can see the trigger well. You can probably see where they've deactivated it in there and plugged the barrel and everything if the lighting's good enough. If not, take my word for it, that's what they've done. So yeah, the SA26, so a really cool Czechoslovakian gun from, you know, the very early Cold War. I think this is about 1948 or something it was designed. Used Tokarev rounds. Compare it to something like the PPSH or even the PPS-43, you know, it's such a better gun than that in terms of ergonomics and everything. But yeah, has a load of features that kind of would carry on with other guns, and some like that weird clip loader there that wouldn't. But overall, there's something I really like about the Czech and Polish sort of guns from you know, the early sort of Cold War, like this, the PM63, the Scorpion, because they were quite innovative. And obviously, as you'd know if you know a lot about firearms history, what tended to actually catch on a bit later was just the idea of having an assault rifle carbine sort of idea. That you take your assault rifle caliber, you know, cartridges, say 545 by 39, 556 by 45, you know, 762 by 39, and you just have a cut down version of a regular rifle for vehicle crews and everything like that. But at the time, you know, lots of nations were still using various sort of pistol caliber rounds for submachine guns and whatever. And yeah, for that, this would have been really good. I think Forgotten Weapons has done a video shooting it, but weirdly I think he was a bit afraid of putting his hand there because he thought it was so close to the muzzle or something. But from other videos I've seen of people shooting this, you know, they seem absolutely fine holding it there. I can't see how this is going to break apart and your hand's going to suddenly fly in front of the muzzle. Personally, I'd feel safer shooting this, even if it was full auto, with my hand like that, than I would, you know, holding some of the crossbows I've got. Because obviously, as you know, the crossbow, if your fingers slightly rise above the grip, like that, and the string goes, you've lost your fingers. So I'd still feel safer gripping something like this full auto, like that, than I would, you know, a crossbow like that. So yeah, there we go. I think it's very innovative for its time, because like we said, it's got like that kind of folding foregrip design, which I really like in stocks. I suppose in theory you could have it like that, but you probably wouldn't, would you? Because that might even block the barrel, but there's nothing stopping it, it's still locked in like that. If you had your fingers there, you'd probably get burn on them from the heat of the barrel. Yeah, the locking mechanism is as simple, just to re-demonstrate it. You turn it part way, it folds away from that little sort of locking lug there. It folds out completely, then locks back. Then you can obviously put this down again. You've got the shoulder stock, and to close it up again, you just pull backwards on here, which was easy when I was doing it earlier off camera, but now it's suddenly, there we go. And then you just fold it back like that. Do this part way again to lock into place, and then put it that way again, and then you've got your foregrip. So yeah, the Czech VZ25 SA26 series, whatever you want to call it. I think it's technically the VA24 or something was the first variant of it. But yeah, it's a really, really innovative design for when it came out. But, you know, lots of the features would be copied, as said, like with stuff with the Uzi. But sadly, it's not really remembered like it should be for how good and innovative it was, you know, today.